Hey, Monica, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I've been following you for a long time, so it was very exciting when I got a response from your team.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm excited that we get to chat and have this conversation. So why don't we just dive in? Tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
That's a lot.
I know, right?
Let me give you the short version. So I started out in corporate, working for companies like Toshiba and Canon, and really found myself. I loved what I did in the branding, marketing, PR space, but at the same time, there was something that I was lacking, that passion. And I worked with an amazing team of people. And I'm like, how can I find this, but do it with more passion? And at that time, this is all pre 9/11, it was a different industry. So after 9/11 happened, I feel so many of us stopped and we really took inventory of what we were doing and if we're making an impact or following your true calling. So I pivoted and I went down this path where I wanted to be. I'm a natural born glam girl. I love everything sparkly hair, makeup, clothing. I mean, I'm like your true glam person. And it doesn't matter if I'm like going to stay and sit at home all day. I'm like, I want to be in the beauty industry. So I just feverishly pursued this opportunity. I got an entry-level position I was a marketing manager. Like I started at the very entry, even though I came with all these years, like a decade of experience, they're like, but you have nothing in the beauty industry. So again, I was just very tenacious, started there, and I worked my way up to an EVP by the time I left. And it was such an eye-opening experience in branding, and not just in beauty, across the board, because I handled a lot of the international business. So I had the luxury of going to some beautiful locales and learning about how they do business in their culture. You know, every country is so different, but branding is the same across the board. Fast forward, I'm originally from Southern California, and I felt stagnant. And I'm not a person to feel stagnant, but I like, you want the safety net of your home and your family. So I did what any normal person would do. I left my job, got rid of my home, and moved to New York City because it's the hub of where so many industries, but specifically this is like at the onset of like really seeing the spike in social media. And I wanted to be in the thick of it. So I upped and moved, which was extremely hard, uncomfortable. I fell on my face quite a bit, and I'm going on 7 years here. So
amazing.
Yeah, and about a little over 5 years ago is when I launched my own agency, because I just decided it was time. I had so much experience and knowledge that I wasn't ready to jump back into somebody else's idyllic, their company, and I wanted to create what my own company represented and my core values and what my mission statement, and follow that through. I want to create that legacy for future generations myself. So I just decided it was time, and it's taking on all of that at once is a big task, but
it's a lot.
It's been entertaining.
For sure. So what does your agency do?
So I'm a full brand management. So I develop brands from scratch from the very start. I also focus on a lot of rebrand, which in today's time, everything has changed a lot with how social media has played a factor in how we build brands and how we scale them. So let's take an antiquated brand or somebody that's done well, maybe with a brick and mortar or something traditional, and they don't know, they're stagnant, they're stuck. And so they'll come to me for a rebrand. And then I do still have a publicity arm as well for all of my clients. But I've incorporated a lot of technology and a lot of social media into the foundation of how we build the brand and scale it today. If you don't have those elements today, you're pretty much irrelevant.
For sure. So what does the rebrand look like? I'm curious. So like, let's say we came to you and said we wanted to do a rebrand. What are some of those steps that you would take?
So a lot of the rebrands I'm working on right now, let's say back in the day, you hired somebody to build a pretty website. I mean, we're all about the aesthetic, especially today with social media being so prevalent. But back even 5 years ago, 7 years ago, SEO was prevalent. You had to have SEO in order to drive traffic and rank to get your website seen and get people. Today, I feel SEO is very antiquated. So we would start the rebrand by using newer technology to scale you quicker. So something like building your funnels, doing targeted ads via your social media platforms. I do feel that publicity is still an integral part, but I don't feel it's what you lead with out of the gate. I feel that comes after you've laid the foundation and you're somewhat more established. Then you need a lot more PR done, and you need those mentions and the write-ups. But I feel like even going back 5 years ago, people would lead with a pretty website and a lot of PR. And I'm like, but where does that monetize your brand? And how are you really getting in front? Like a big billboard or a magazine spread, an advertorial, if you will, is not going to get in front of your perfect demographic. And this is where we have funnels and targeted advertising on social media. And this is how you can quickly scale and get right in front of who you want to reach. So that's the biggest rebrand that I'm seeing, are the companies or smaller businesses that just stop seeing the growth because they're not using the tools we have today. So that's where I usually start with rebrands.
Okay, so we use funnels. And what are some of like the technology that you're using for the funnels?
I'm a fan of, are you talking about which company or what? All of the above?
Sure, let's do
I
it.
know you're probably familiar with ClickFunnels.
Yeah.
I've been a student of theirs for about 4 years, and I know they're just celebrated their 5-year as well. I feel what they're doing is really disrupting the space, and they're probably one of the best ones out there just in the level of technology and the support. I also highly believe in AI. I think we're in 2020. We talk about the future, and the future is now. We need to be using this technology that's readily available, and it's not at the price points that people may think, like these big box retailers or the Amazons or the big retail partners that have been using it for years. It's now so affordable that small online businesses can use it. Your local pizza restaurant can use it, your local small boutique. It is accessible for all of us today.
How
And
so? Can you give an example? Like, let's talk AI, because I think this is really interesting of how you're
right?
using it. Yeah.
I think, well, I mean, we're all, as I'm sitting here looking at my desktop, so I'm on Zoom with you. I have my Apple Watch on, so I won't talk to SIRI because then all my devices will go off in front of me. Right next to me is my ALEXA, which
Right.
all of these things are AI. And for instance, it's so affordable to implement AI strategy into scaling your brand. I gave an example earlier last week. I needed a pair of new shoes, and I was talking with a girlfriend on the phone. Actually, I wasn't. I lied. We were voice texting each other. So I'm walking around my house. I'm like, oh, I have a trip. I need to go buy a pair of this. And I mentioned the brand name. Before you know it, my ALEXA picked up on it, as did my SIRI on my phone, and I'm getting dings, dings, dings. So my Instagram Messenger, because of artificial intelligence, is now showing me all the advertisements for that shoe brand. Then I get a ding on my watch, which was an actual text message to my cell phone number saying, if you come into this retailer today, you're going to get an extra 15% off. Just show this text message. That is AI at its best. To be able to buy that kind of a targeted ad is very inexpensive. And this is where people need to educate themselves as a brand and a business to be able to target that in that demographic. So it was a well-known shoe brand, and the retailer was Nordstrom. So I know Nordstrom is using all of this technology, especially with the brand new location they just opened in the middle of Midtown Manhattan, which is massive. And I never would have thought. I would have gone online, ordered it, waited the week for it to come. But instead, I jumped in an Uber and I went to Nordstrom, bought that pair of shoes, and got my discount per my text message that they sent me. I never signed up for a mailing list. I never input my information into anything. But artificial intelligence, if you're educated and you know how to utilize it to scale, it's massive in how it can change the blueprint of your company. Like, it can really scale small businesses so rapidly if used right. So that's the rebrand and the foundation for what I'm really doing with the brands that I'm creating. I also I don't work with clients who come up with a one-time product per se. I am passionate about creating legacy brands. when I launched my company, I unfortunately lost my mom, and it was really an eye-opening experience for me to take inventory of what was really important for me and what I wanted to create. And unfortunately, fortunately and unfortunately being in the beauty business, and I think we see with the movements that we're all in today with the pay gap and women not earning their worth, and then the Me Too movement, I was in a lot of the mix of those things that were going on, and I witnessed a lot. And I wanted to make sure that my core values, my mission statement for my business created legacies. I want to work with people that want to leave that legacy for generations to come. How we can do that today to start to lay the foundation is using the technology available. And it's affordable. It's not just, for me, I find that it is affordable, because I always think that if you have that vision, there's a bigger picture on how you're going to get the startup capital to invest in building. But you're talking under 10,000. You're not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, which what it used to be back in the day. So I can talk about this all day long.
No, I'm so interested in this. And I think like AI is totally the future. I have a 6-year-old son. He's in first grade, and he asks Siri everything. And
Right.
so, yeah, he's like doing his homework and he's like, "Hey Siri, how do you spell this?" And I'm like, it's just like so wild. And he's like, "Hey Siri, what president was yada yada?" And he's just like, every question that he has, he knows it's like at his fingertips. He can just literally voice ask Siri and get the answer right away, which is kind of wild.
So can you imagine like where he's going to be in 10 years, or when he enters college, and the advancement that we're going to have? And now with the voice imprint on, I'm a water snob, so I only drink Avion. So I get on my ALEXA, every 5 days, I get the circle reminder. Hey Alexa, what's my reminder? Hi, you are probably down to your last 3 bottles of Avion. Would you like to reorder? Yes, I would, Alexa. Boom. 2 days later or a day later, there's my case of Avion at my doorstep. So the way we're shopping and doing business and connecting via artificial intelligence is just, it's mind-blowing. But it is, you think about, I'm on the older scale, so I remember the Jetsons when I was a little girl, and I'm like, this is going to be so cool. Okay, we don't have flying cars, but we do have all that other technology that they talked about. It's at our fingertips.
Yeah.
And it's a pity when people think that it's going to take this large sum of money to scale a brand. It's not necessary today. There is so many accessible means to scale, and scale rapidly the right way.
So break it down for us. How can we get started? What are some like simple steps that we can take and just start scaling right away?
So the first thing I always say is, if you're going back to, let's talk about the pretty aesthetic of, let's say you hired somebody to build a beautiful website, the aesthetic is there, and the aesthetic has to be there, especially with social media. It's really up the bar with the quality of the content you put out, how you want to be perceived. Less is more today, so you don't need the diverse, difficult 10-page website anymore. But what's the purpose of your website? It's more than just parlaying your information. It's supposed to be a sales machine. So you first start with the foundation of, I don't use SEO. I think it's very antiquated. I don't think it's necessary if you're just starting out. If you did it way back when, 5-7 years ago, and you have it, then great. And your ranking is probably really good. To start a brand today with SEO would not be my recommendation. I would start it simply by using a funnel. I prefer ClickFunnels as a company. I just love the customer service that they offer. And it's just, I feel they're like on the top of their game with what they're doing.
For sure.
Secondly, it's a very economical way. I think people that are on social media, if they are not using targeted advertising, they're missing the boat.
Totally.
Targeted advertising is, like I referred to the billboard, like who is going to drive by and see that billboard? Maybe you get, in one day, you'll get 10,000 impressions of cars driving by. Who is going to stop and actually be like, oh, I need to call them?
It's so wild. Like I was literally, so I've started actually teaching entrepreneurship to women who are in a safe house who've been trafficked, and
Oh
helping
gosh.
them kind of figure out like how can you support yourself after you've been, after you've done your time here and everything, and you're kind of rehabilitated and everything. And so I'm teaching them all these different ways they can make money and like start their own businesses. And one of them is saying like, "Oh, I want to put up billboards and that kind of thing." And I'm like, "Hold up. How many people actually look at billboards? Like most people are looking at their phone." And it's
Yeah.
going to cost a ton of money to put up a
Yeah.
billboard. So like, what are some smarter ways? What are some other things that we could think about?
Yeah, and that's where, and using a funnel is, let's say I always give the example. You're going to walk into a networking event. Let's say there's 1,000 people in there and the networking event is 2 hours. What is the likelihood you're going to get to those top 5 people that you're really going to connect with and build a relationship and do business with them? That's like a shot in the dark. You don't know who until you go through, and then you don't want to go through too quick. You want to get to know them, but then it's like, why do that when you can one, use a funnel to get to niche to that specialty, and then two, use your targeted ads to really target. So people that are not using targeted ads, I feel like there's a misconception that they're so costly or so difficult. Take a course. There's so many courses out there. I am launching a course on this. I did one last year, revamped it because the algorithm really changed. The platform to build ads it's not the easiest, but it's definitely not the hardest.
Totally.
And do 4 ads, split test it. Definitely add that pixel onto your website so you know who you're qualifying. It's like magic. You wake up and you're like, wow, where did all these new people come from that are my perfect client? And I call it magic, but there's a science behind it. And if you're utilizing it, you can do something as small as a $10 ad spend and run 4 different audiences to it and get 1,000 or 10,000 people. Yeah. So I think people underestimate. They just need to get educated. The number one thing is be aware and educate yourself, especially like you said with these safe houses, like a billboard, advertorials in magazines. Those things are still very expensive and your return on investment is very, very low, unfortunately. But that's always been the nature of that game. Now that we can niche it all the way down and get right in front of those people, why not utilize it? It's not just the big companies anymore. We can do it. I mean, it's there for us to use. So I think 2020, I think we're going to see a lot more people jumping in that are on the smaller business side, jumping into the technology to scale. At least I see it. I see it from my side, and I see how many people are getting in the communities, and I love it because it's just more empowering for you to get your message out. And that's the number one thing with working with women in these. I want to talk about this offline, but working with them, it's like just running a few courses to educate them on how they can easily scale and get their message out. It's it for good.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, we started doing paid advertising forever ago. I just remember reading Gary Vaynerchuk's book. And he's like, if you're not doing paid ads out, like it's going to get more expensive. Now is the time, and dive in. And so I dove in like right away. And with our Facebook ads, I'm like, as long as we're profitable, keep scaling. Mm-hmm. And now we spend like an obscene amount of money on Facebook ads because we keep seeing that ROI. And it's like, why wouldn't we do this?
Right. I'm the same. I started as well with Gary Vee when I read his books and I just binged his content. And
I love him.
Oh my gosh, I love him. I've met him now on like 3 different occasions, and I swear I'm like, he's like my nerd crush. Like I just want to sit in a room and just consume everything that he has to share. But he's real. He tells it like it is, and it's true. You have your phone and you have social media. It's free. Use it and then invest a little into it to scale. And it's such a simple concept that I think people complicate it more than it needs to be.
Totally. I mean, we started off small. Like I started doing Facebook ads in my fitness business back in the day, and that was like ads to like pages, like 2013, I think. And so it was like $5 a day or something like that. Yeah. And then with this business, we started at, I think, like $2,000 a month, which wasn't a lot. And now we're spending close to that, like over $1,000 a day on ads, which like, if it works, why wouldn't you spend more, you know? But it like, we didn't start there. We started like a super tiny $5 a day budget. And then
Yeah.
as we saw those results, we just kept scaling.
Yep. And that's the whole point. And that's what it's there for. And set those budgets and those limits, but definitely utilize it. I mean, it's for everyone. It's not just for an online business and I was sharing this with a friend yesterday. I mean, it's Sunday. I live in New York City. And I feel like every Sunday there are targeted ads from 3 pizza shops targeted at me because it's Sunday. Who doesn't eat pizza on Sunday in New York? We all do. So I get targeted and I see it in my Instagram, in my Facebook. I see it everywhere. And before you know it, I'm eating a pizza from one of them because they were like saturating my feed, but it's only on Sunday, which is typical. I mean, I think a lot of families do pizza night 1 day a week. So for me, they're like, okay, how many times has she ordered? But it's a small restaurant. It's a small pizza shop that all they serve is pizza. And they're using Facebook ads. Like, you can do anything. It's for any business out there.
Yeah. So what platforms are you on the most, and what do you teach your clients to be on?
Going back to Gary Vee, I mean, I think you need to be on multiple, and you need to, tweak your content for each platform. I'm an Instagrammer. I love Instagram. I love the aesthetic. I love, I have all my thought leaders that I follow on there. So that would be my number one platform. I think that's a must. I think it's curated for you. I know for me, it's curated, and I only see, and fortunately and unfortunately, I only see business things. I have to go and actually type in friends or family, but then I switch over to Facebook for that. So friends and family is like a happy split on Facebook. But then I do feel the end of last year and all of this year, we're going to see those private Facebook groups popping up more and more. So I do have a few private communities on Facebook as well. I feel that sense of community on Facebook is where you bond more and you get more of that niche, that if you ran ads to them, bring them into a private. Don't have them in that big networking room that Facebook is. Have them in that private top tier of who you want to connect with. So Instagram, private Facebook, and then Facebook. And I'm jumping into LinkedIn. I'm not a TikTok girl, even though I've been told I should. I don't know. I'm still on the fence.
These young kids these days. I'm like, I don't know.
I'm thinking about hiring like a 13-year-old to film my videos for TikTok. That's my strategy for that. So I'm toying with that right now. So with my traditional branding agency, I have clients that age from age 10 to well into their 60s. So I cover the gamut. So I think a couple of my youth clients, I might hire to film some TikTok videos for me.
Super smart. What are some ways to make your brand really stand out on Instagram?
Be authentic and be unique. Do whatever it is that your first voice, your passion, and just come across as yourself. Be genuine. How you show up and capture, even if it's that one person that needs to hear your message, that's all that matters. I think being too concerned with the vanity metrics is a disservice. Yeah. I don't feel that that's where you don't make the impact you want to make. And I feel I'm of the school of thought that less is more when it comes to this, and you want to impact more people in a stronger way versus just lightly brushing on so many different people with these big numbers. There are a lot of thought leaders that do have these massive followings that are doing it extremely well. But I like to be hands-on and personable with everybody, all of my clients. So I have to make sure to manage that and not run too many ads to get too many more clients. It's a great problem to have, but I'm very cautious because I like to be hands-on. And I know part of the reason why they're signing up is they want me involved actively. And in order to do that, I need to be, scale at a certain rate.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. What do you see as being some of the biggest mistakes entrepreneurs are making with social media and, making all this happen with their branding?
I think they try to do too much all at once. Mm-hmm. It's a layering effect. I think trying to be on every platform, as we know, Gary Vee took a long time. He was quiet. We didn't know who he was. He flew under the radar until he got his brand right. And then it appeared to the outside that he scaled rapidly. But I feel like when we're all building that foundation and doing that work, it's okay to be quiet. Build a solid foundation before you put yourself out there. And also don't be afraid to fail. I think the messiness of failure is where the most beautiful parts of your brand comes alive,
Yeah.
and learn and pass those lessons forward in what you're doing. So I'm a true believer of, I've fallen on my face many a time, and I get up and I'm like, oh, ouch. I was taught that you're not supposed to fail, but you know what? It's good for you.
Yeah.
It makes you thicker skin, just stronger. And there was a lesson in there that you're supposed to learn. So I now kind of giggle every time I know I'm headed down a wrong path. I'm like, oh, I should turn around. Like, but no, let's see what this is going to teach me. So because there's beauty in what you're going to learn from that. But the foundation is the number one thing you need to lay down first. It's, if you don't have that strong, solid foundation of what your brand is, I take them through an entire survey, and it's a lot of mindset, psychology of what your brand is, what it means, the staying power of it. We don't want to launch brands that are going to fizzle out in 6 months or even 6 years for that matter. We want to build for the longevity of it. And last but not least, it needs to turn a profit. If it's not generating revenue, it's a hobby. And then you shouldn't be investing the way you would invest in a brand into a hobby. So those are like my first key things that I make sure to share with everybody.
Yeah, I like that you touched on failure. What are some of the biggest failures that you've had, and how did you like overcome it, or what was the lesson that you learned from it?
Oh, I didn't do enough research on some of the online gurus I initially signed up with. And I strive to, I want to work with all different types and ages and different phases of business. I don't always want to go to the best well-known expert. I want it to be an even playing field, but I do also feel doing your due diligence and investigating how they got to where they are, you have to do before you invest, because there are some people in this space that can say they're self-proclaimed experts, but then you buy into the beauty of the aesthetic and everything that they're offering, only to find out that that's not the case. And then you just, lost $20,000 and whatever that number is. So I've had a few of these moments where I'm like, okay, let me pull back and let me start from the ground again and make sure I do my due diligence before I invest a penny, because you hear that more times than not. And it punches me in my gut, because especially and I focus mainly on women entrepreneurs, and I know, women that are maybe coming out of an abusive situation, or maybe they're just starting their business and they're young and they're using, credit cards to pay. I don't want to see them go into debt to launch a business. And there's so many ways to launch in an affordable method to not go into extreme debt. So those are some of the things. I did take out a hefty business loan to launch. And at the time, it was the right decision because I saw the technology happening and I wanted to invest in it before it got pricier. Yeah. So I look back and it was the right decision. But then now I look back with the interest and I'm like, oh, ouch. I'm like, I could have scaled maybe a little bit slower and cost a little less. End of the day, it'll all even out. So those are some of the things that happened with me.
Totally. And I think it depends on kind of who you talk to. So I know like one of my mentors, she said that she would have taken out a loan or like something so she could have scaled faster. Yeah. And for me, like I never took out a loan. I just sold stuff throughout our house and like kind of bootstrapped everything. And for me, like I hate debt. Like I'm a Dave Ramsey girl, and that would have like if I would have had debt, that would have stressed me out. So I think everyone's just a little bit different when it comes to that.
True. You need to do what's right for you and I agree with the scaling. That was my number one thing I saw with technology and how quickly it was going to just infiltrate all of these business owners. And I'm like, I need to be ahead of this curve. Yeah. And so, like I said, I have my moments where I'm like, oh, did I do the right thing? And then I see the return. I'm like, yes, I did it. Yep. So, to each his own on that one. But yeah. And then you just know that you can pay off the debt sooner.
Totally. What's one of the best books that you've read?
I have so many. I'm an avid reader. Sorry, I thought I turned this off. Oh goodness. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you. You're good.
Okay. There. I thought I silenced all my calls, but I guess that came through. I don't know how that happened. I love everything business related. back before I launched my business, I did B school with Marie Forleo. So I just read her book, Everything is Figure Outable. But going to like my everyday stuff, anything to do with making the quantum leap. So it's shortcutting, instead of getting from point A to point B and doing it in a very methodical, well thought out, lengthy process. Quantum leap is all about your mindset and how to make that happen quicker, which is using technology as well. So, but it all starts here.
I love that. What does it mean to you to make an impact?
My passion is helping women, making an impact to create their own livelihood and follow their passion, and not do things because they're told they're supposed to, or act in a certain fashion to make that next jump in their career. I feel like as women, especially today, we have so much power and not enough of us are using it for good. We need to step out of that comfort zone or the box of judgment and speak our minds and make that impact. So I am here to advocate for every and any woman, men as well, that want to make a difference. I'm here to help them make that difference and have their voice, build their brand, and share their message. So that's my number one.
I love it. What's something I didn't ask you that I should have?
I don't know. That's a good one. I don't know. Help me on that one.
Any last words of wisdom?
Don't take no for an answer.
Ooh.
After you'll hear no a lot, but just know that with determination and with the passion that you have to make a difference, that there will be someone or you. Make sure you put yourself first in the process though, and say yes to yourself. If other people doubt or question your ability, stop and stay true to who you are and your core values of what you do. That was a huge one in a lot of my past career, that I did not agree, but I had to go with it because it was my role. I was getting paid. I was an employee. And today I would easily walk away from situations that weren't meant for me. So I think stay very true to who you are and why you want to do the work you do.
So good. Where can we connect with you?
Instagram, Facebook, and my website are all Identity Brand by Monica Klein. So everything is the same, and it's Kline.
Cool. We'll make sure to put that in the show notes. Well, thank you so much, Monica, for being on the podcast. I had so much fun talking to you.
Likewise, Rachel. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.